Peter Robinson. Peter is Chief Advisor for Mining Operations at Metal Fair. I tried to condense Peter's many senior roles in the mining industry, but we would probably be late for lunch if we did that. But one thing Peter is also, he's also on the board of FAME, a European-funded body doing some amazing stuff on mine processing and waste treatment. So over to you, Peter. Welcome.
Let me see if I can get the technology to work. Good morning. I would like to speak to you on behalf of Metal Fair. Metal Fair is a Serbian industrial company with a capital S. It is, I'm very honored to be advising and working with Metal Fair because it is, in my view, everything that is good about the next generation of industrial companies emerging from Serbia using the best of Serbian resources, both human and elsewhere. And the one thing that you have in this region is a lot of very capable people, particularly in relation to the resource sector. We currently are involved in steel production, trading, mining, energy, and we've got about 600 people involved in the group. But today, what I'd like to talk to you about is where we are active in mining exploration, particularly our southernmost area, which is down in the, let's say, region. We have currently 3 active exploration areas in Kadinja, which is primarily copper, in the north, Baranja, which is a host of everything, and let's say, which is the one where I personally feel we have a lot of interesting potential, which I will now spend a few minutes telling you about. Let's say we've potentially got 2 very important strategic exploration areas, Marjan and Redan, and the next slide will show you why. Let's say mine, which is one of the historical mining ventures, important mining ventures here in Serbia that has had, in recent years, an interesting history, if I could put it that way. The mine is there. It is bordering on becoming a legacy operation, but we have got the exploration ground surrounding, let's say, as you can see from this slide, which we are very positive about. The license area is, giving some statistics, 300 kilometers south of Belgrade. It's well accessed. It's the climate, as we all know. We've got water, electricity, and local communities which have a long history of mining. But it is also in an important landscape in a sensitive environmental area where there is a lot of rural communities with a long history of agriculture and other ways. Now, the geological setting is similar to, let's say, and potentially we can split it into 2 target areas. The one that we are interested in as a junior miner, because the mining industry, in my view, is becoming polarized. There is the large mining houses that are looking for the very large projects. Porphyry copper, not interest unless it's got a P next to the name. And then that leaves behind, and then the mining finance sector that would say, we want risk-free, early cash flow, good profits, but you don't want $250 million plus, or we're not interested. That commission wouldn't be very high in our annual bonus. And that then leaves the junior mining sector with smaller projects, smaller capital requirements, and good quality potential in near-surface vein structures and other deposits that are smaller. Here in Serbia, we have a lot of potential in what I would call polymetallic complex, smaller scale projects. They can be developed, they can achieve a lot of the requirements that are needed for employment, tax, and other things. But there's also the potential that we'll find a porphyry, and then we'll go and talk to the big mining houses, who I'm sure will spend a lot of money helping us with them. Potentially, we have both sets of geological conditions at, let's say. We are targeting the near surface mineralizations, but it is prospective for deeper porphyries. As an exploration venture, it ticks the boxes. Our strategy at, let's say, is very conventional. We attach a huge amount of importance to the historical data, and that is where our Serbian colleagues are very, very valuable, because their ability to collate and understand the historical data. You've got to remember that this region has a very long and good history of resource exploration. And in my view, most of the historical resource exploration that I've seen is usually pretty good once you understand it. We then look at target delineation, surface mapping, rock chip sampling, trenching, and drilling. Drilling's expensive, so we try and spend quite a bit of time of working out the smart places to put drill holes. But we also don't underestimate the historical value of the way the old Balkan miners went exploration. They didn't drill holes in their very rough surface terrain. They put in exploration drifts. And these exploration drifts are still a very useful way of exploring, particularly when you look in the terrain you have here in the Balkans, where getting access to a drill setup will cost you 5 times as much as drilling the hole. And what we have in Metal Fair, again, is some very good traditional skills in developing exploration drifts, reworking them, and gaining a lot of information from them. Within our resource targets down at, let's say, we've identified 2 target areas. Both the resource targets are polymetallics, potentially gold, silver, lead, and zinc, epithermal mineralizations, which is where we are primarily targeting, and we're drilling holes to look at those. These are the two areas within the leases. Now, this first area is really just a standard report on exploration, but you can see with some of the, and it's always dangerous to give snapshot information from exploration drilling, because you can pull out things that would get most people very excited, but we've still done that. But you can see that we are getting some quite interesting gold intersects and so on, but we're a long way short of enough data to start to convert that into a mineable resource. Again, I remind you, we are working in an important landscape, a rural landscape with a very strong agricultural community. Our second area at Culabrasso, again, we are drilling it, and we are getting some very positive results, as you can see from this, but we're still quite a long way from being able to identify a resource. But we're optimistic. Moving to why we are optimistic, mineralogy and metallurgy, which in my view is just as important as geological exploration, and apologize to my geologist colleagues, but where we are surrounding, let's say, we are fairly confident that we've got the same mineralogy and metallurgy as the, let's say, mine, and therefore most of our information would give us the optimism that if we delineate some mineable resources, we are heading into a similar set of ore bodies that, let's say, has mined for many, many years. Again, we therefore have the confidence that if we can delineate something we can mine, we will then be able to process it with conventional gravitational flotation, and that side of it will not. Because often we find here in Serbia that a lot of people get excited about the geology only to come up very short when they look at the mineralogy and the route to processing, which can be woefully complex. This is not this is not a region for amateur miners, I can promise you that. Typical of the ore that we're finding there. Our mining strategy, the near-surface vein structures we're looking for are from basically surface down to 500 meters. Because they're narrow vein structures, we expect to be looking at smaller scale mining techniques, and I would put, let's say, mine into a smaller scale type operation because of the nature of the mine. We want to look at new mining techniques. We're looking at potentially narrow vein open pits with some form of surface crown pillar to allow us to mine underground quite close to surface and maximize resource utilization. And we are trialing a new technology promoted at this conference a couple of years ago. I'm not sure whether I wish it was or wasn't, but we were convinced to trial some Canadian technology on thermal fragmentation of the ore, and if I possibly say, we're still trialing it. I'd say mining strategy, underground mining will follow the mineralized zones, following early open pit operations, narrow vein techniques. We want to reduce mining dilution, cut and fill shrinkage stopage through standard smaller scale mining, which we have championed. And this is a picture of the type of vein structure we expect to be mining from underground. Conclusions. Let's say areas are epithermal and porphyry prospective terrain. We're looking for the vein structures. If we find a big porphyry copper, we will definitely be talking to people. Our exploration drilling is progressing well. We are doing our own exploration drilling because we've got the resources and expertise to do it, and that increases time and reduces cost, and we're getting good quality results. And we're progressing a small-scale mining strategy, but would be very happy for a larger one. Now, what I'd like just before I finish is to say one or two words, if I'm permitted. Currently, I'm a digger. I operate mines, and mining sustainability, it's a wonderful word. I'm actually not sure if I actually know what it means. What I probably know that it means a lot of different things to a lot of different mining people. But what is important in my view about mining? The first thing is that you can't do without it. The whole world needs the raw materials, so the no mining option is not available. The second thing, if you move on from that, is we as the mining industry have a responsibility. And that responsibility comes down to what I would call is temporary land use. We are borrowing the land to dig out the resource that we all need, and we have a responsibility to put it back into a condition that it is not a liability or a pollution legacy for future generations. We must put it back in a manner where it is sustainable, use the word, for future generations. That's my view. The biggest issue in mining, in my view, is the disposal of waste. Mining operations generate waste. We can do nothing about that. In the European Union, bless them, they have recently created a directive called the Mineral Waste Disposal Directive. It is one, the thickest document I've ever seen, and two, the most horrific amount of legislation I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, it is an attempt, a framework for the disposal of waste. We have to do that. Down at, let's say, we are exploring around an area that has a long legacy of mining, and the underground mine is continuing. But where that has a legacy in terms of sustainability is that it has been disposing of its waste in a traditional manner for many years. Nothing wrong with it. They have been disposing of it using conventional hydrocyclone and disposable tailings dams, and they're still there. Are those dams the right legacy to leave for the future? In my opinion, no. And that doesn't just apply to, let's say it applies to all tailings dams, particularly in wet climates, northern hemisphere climates. Therefore, the ability to deal with processing waste in terms of new mining operations rather than creating dams is important, and then also, if you like, restoring the dams that we have as legacy issues. And I will leave you with that thought, and that I see is one of our challenges going forward if we're looking to develop new resources in the area, is also to incorporate in our planning the effective environmental or the legacy issues where we can improve the temporary land use where others have borrowed the land before us. Thank you.